older there.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I do it on purpose.
A lovely touch. Now you can get one over on us and tell us what it feels like to win a World Cup.
No, it's a fantastic feeling. Obviously, for me, I think having won nearly everything, I think it's the moment where you feel the most special. You feel fortunate to be up there lifting this prestigious trophy. Not many players, have been lucky enough to be in that situation, and for me, it's the top that you can get in football.
You came on in the final, you made all the difference to have an assist as well. I mean, you've had many assists in your career, but this one's so special.
Definitely the most special one, the most important. And I was thinking of shooting there, but thank God I didn't. And very, very important goal.
Lovely pass.
Yeah. And Iniesta's not bad either, is he? He's still going, his 4th World Cup. And it's interesting, Cesc, that you played in 6 major tournaments, of course, for Spain. You won everything with the national side, but you never got a look in under Lopetegui. Perhaps if he got sacked a couple of months ago, you might have had a chance.
Maybe, you never know, you never know. No, I spoke to him at the beginning of last season. When Conte first came to Chelsea, I wasn't playing at all. And he just wanted to try and give opportunities to the younger players who he worked with, under 21s and under 19s, and fair play to him. They did well. They've been playing well for 2 years. They qualified in style, and they deserve the opportunity as well. I just had to wait and keep working.
What do you make of what happens this week? It's been quite extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, this is the Spanish team, one of the favourites for the tournament, in chaos.
Yeah. It's been a strange couple of days. We don't really know exactly what happened 100%, but Julen signed a new contract not even 2 weeks ago. And then all of a sudden he signs for Real Madrid, and getting everyone by surprise. And then what happened in the next 24 hours is just something that I still don't know exactly what happened, but I find it a bit strange.
Do you think it was the right decision to sack him at this point?
Well, from a player's point of view, I think maybe not, because you want stability. You are about to play a big game in the biggest stage, and you want the less problems as possible in your head. But I believe in the mentality of these top players. They've been playing together for a long time now. They know each other well. They've been working for 2 years. They know exactly what they want. I think Hierro already said that he will not change many things, so it's up to them.
I think from the Spanish FA point of view, I admire the decision. I think it was ruthless. I think it's about principle. I think it was the correct decision because they were put in an impossible situation. But from the team's point of view, we're about to find out over the next 2 or 3 weeks whether it's going to work against them. And you would think it has to have a negative effect somewhere along the line.
I think it's got the possibility to work as a positive. I think you've got experienced players in there. I think Hierro is a very calm and cool and collected individual. I think it's important, it's pivotal how he approaches it. Make it something that they can work towards them for a positive for them. I can't believe the ignorance of Real Madrid, if I'm honest. It's a great football club, great history, but the ignorance to be able to go out there and announce this on the eve of a World Cup, puts himself on a pedestal above the national team. I'm gobsmacked about that.
Yeah, it's quite an extraordinary tale for Portugal, of course. It's got to be good news for Ronaldo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'll be licking his lips and thinking that's destabilised them a little bit. That's going to give me an opportunity, hopefully, to hone in, and their concentration might be elsewhere, especially the defenders, hopefully, in his book. And I'm sure that he'll be trying to really break some more records. He's got records that are tumbling all the time at international level as well. And Portugal have come. I think they've got this game at a good time.
Yeah, well, there's no question about that. They're, of course, the European champions as well. Alan, you were at the opening game last night. We've seen a few matches. This is probably the first big one, isn't it? That's for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of the stature of the two teams. What have you made of it so far?
I thought it was a magnificent atmosphere last night in the Luzhniki Stadium. We were left here. There was a couple of cracking goals. Saudi Arabia were they were hopeless, to be honest. Russia went after them and they basically couldn't handle it. Weren't quite at it physically. Brilliant finish there. But just from leaving here the studio and going on the metro to the stadium and speaking to the fans, mixing those with fans, a little story about the 3 generations of a family: the granddad, the son, and the grandkids, flown all the way in from Peru. They've all got their kits on. 12.5 hours to Amsterdam, another 3.5 hours. They haven't even got tickets. They've saved for 2 years to be here. They've come here to stand in the fan fest, which I think sums it up after these 3 or 4 days. I think it's been absolutely fantastic.
I think more importantly, Alan Shearer on the Metro. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
First time in 25 years.
Unbelievable.
And even more importantly, Alan Shearer sat next to Putin there. We'll come back to Spain shortly, but 2 games have been played today already. We begin with Egypt versus Uruguay.
Same towards the centre-back, off goal in. Oh, side netting, Martin.
Wow. It's a really poor miss, isn't it, from there?
Cavani into Suarez! Did he wanted too much time? He took too long, and the keeper smothered it. Cushioned header down to Cavani, into Suarez. Back to Cavani! That's a super save. Early in the World Cup, but that's probably the best save we've seen so far. Cavani for Uruguay. Off the post. Oh, and Sanchez blocked the effort from his own player, Cáceres. Egypt are wobbling. They've won it, Uruguay! Right at the death. It's Jose Jimenez. And it could be Uruguay's first opening game victory in a World Cup final since 1970.
So, late drama. Uruguay are second in Group A behind Russia on goal difference, of course. The hosts play Egypt next.
The Sufa will swing this one in. Headed back to Ziyech. Almost fell in front of goal. Will fall to Belhamba and then Benatia. And somehow Iran get it away. Amiri. And a chance here for Azmoun into the penalty area. Well saved. And inadvertently well saved again by Munir. Best chance of the half for Iran. A bit of space for Belhanda if it will drop to him. Fired in by Ziyech. Ziyech hits it so well. Haji Safi's free kick, and it's in! Jubilation for the Iranians, despair for Morocco, and in the end, the final touch of Aziz Bouadouz.
Oh, what an end to that game as well. And here is the group. It is also featured with Spain and Portugal, of course, which we'll be watching shortly. Meanwhile, England have been training today at their base in Repino ahead of Monday's opening game against Tunisia. Gabby Logan will be with the team throughout, and we can hear from her now. Well, Gabby, it seems to have been a very smooth build-up. The only concerns seem to have been surrounding Marcus Rashford's fitness. Can you tell us how he is?
Well, I'm delighted to tell you, Gary, that he was back at training today. All 23 players were at training, so Gareth Southgate has a fully fit squad. And perhaps Marcus Rashford's few days off training for that knock on the knee have taken away maybe one of the dilemmas and decisions he had to make. He said about Marcus Rashford after the Costa Rica game, he'd given him something to think about. His performance was so good. But after you've missed a few days training, perhaps that just pushes him back a little bit. And Raheem Sterling, who's been in the box seat all season, might be breathing a little bit easier.
Well, they do seem to be a bunch of happy campers, and in particular there seems to be a new, fresh approach, particularly towards the media. Would you say that's the case?
Absolutely. Today you saw an example where the media in the centre they have here at the Cromwell Hotel have a bowling alley, they play darts, there's a pool table, and the players all come in there for their press. And they've developed a darts competition between the player of the day and a nominated member of the press. Today it was David Ornstein of the BBC who played against Jordan Pickford. You can see the results of that on the iPlayer. Only joking. It was in fact Pickford who won. It's players 2, press 0 at the moment when it comes to darts. But that all adds, I think, think, to an air of openness. And the philosophy is, if the players are happy, if they're relaxed, they're going to perform better. So everything that Gareth is doing is related directly to performance on the pitch. And, you know, when you think about his interest in other sports, he's looked at the NFL, he's looked at the Marines, other organisations, you can't help but use the phrase marginal gains, you know, getting those extra 1%. And I was talking to some of the backroom staff yesterday at the training ground, and the expression creating a family was used. And I think it's quite a good analogy, because if this England team is going to prosper at this World Cup, they're going to have to be adaptable, they're going to have to be flexible, look out for each other on the pitch, which families do, always have each other's backs, no matter how annoying they might be at times.
Thank you, Gabby. Won't be long before the press are throwing the darts at the players. Just kidding, let's hope none of us are throwing them. England's opening match against Tunisia will be live on BBC One on Monday. Coverage begins at 6:15. This match will also be available in virtual reality via the BBC Sport VR app. The real Alan Rio and Frank Lampard will join us in the studio, and there'll be more on England at half-time when Gabby speaks to Raheem Sterling. Back to tonight, though. Here's how the two teams line up. In goal, Patricio earns a 70th cap for Portugal. Fonte is preferred to Alves in the centre of defence alongside Pepe. Manchester City's Premier League winner Bernardo Silva starts in midfield. And in attack, Valencia's Guedes gets the nod over Andre Silva to partner, you know who, Ronaldo. As usual, David De Gea will start in goal for Spain. Carvajal is out with a hamstring injury sustained in the Champions League final and is replaced by Real teammate Nacho. In midfield, Iniesta starts in a fourth World Cup. And Costa will be aiming to improve on his 2014 campaign when he failed to have a shot on target in 126 minutes. Well, there is Fernando Hierro. He featured in 4 World Cups for Spain and was the Spanish FA's sporting director. Well, he was until Wednesday. It's been quite a week, as Kelly Cates reports.
It's been called the biggest crisis in the history of Spanish football. But when the team touched down in Krasnodar 1 week ago, all seemed rosy for La Roca. One of the tournament favourites, they were unbeaten in 20 games under coach Julen Lopetegui, who stepped off the plane flanked by Football Federation President Luis Rubiales and captain Sergio Ramos. Those smiles wouldn't last. Real trouble lay ahead.
En un mundial nadie va a vivir de lo que ha hecho en el pasado. No miramos para atrás, miramos para lo que tenemos que hacer, para adelante, y nadie va.
Unbeknownst to anyone, Lopetegui had been approached by Real Madrid, who wanted him to replace Zinedine Zidane. 2 days before the World Cup, the deal was done.
It's just been announced that the Spain coach, Julen Lopetegui, will take over at Real Madrid at the end of the FIFA World Cup.
Rubiales found out just 5 minutes before the announcement. Furious at being left in the dark, the Spanish FA felt they had no option but to sack Lopetegui, despite reports the players wanted him to stay.
Buenas tardes a todos. He comparecido aquí en nombre de la Real Federación Española de Fútbol para comunicaros que nos hemos visto obligados a prescindir del seleccionador nacional.
The solution, ironically, came in the form of a Real Madrid legend, Fernando Hierro, a tough, no-nonsense defender who featured in 4 World Cups as a player, now found himself thrown headfirst into a 5th.
El bruto está, tenemos claro lo que queremos, son 2 semanas de preparación, es técnico del anterior.
Lopetegui, meanwhile, was heading home. Last night, while Hierro was poring over his team selection for Portugal, the former manager was unveiled at the Bernabeu, emotions running high.
Ayer fue un día, posiblemente, desde la muerte de mi madre, el más triste de mi vida.
Where this leaves Spanish football remains to be seen, but one thing's for sure. Another Real Madrid legend will be looking to take full advantage tonight.
We can cross now to the Fisht Stadium in Sochi, the host city of the 2014 Winter Olympics, where Spanish football expert Sid Lowe is with Jason Mohammed.
Well, it's being called the Crisis of Krasnodar, which is where the Spanish national team are being based. And Sid, was all this avoidable, do you think?
I think it was entirely avoidable, and that's the saddest thing about it. This didn't need to happen. It's curious because we're coming to the game now, and the game feels like a relief after everything that's gone on before.
I've just walked past the tunnel, and I've seen the Spanish delegation. You would never think they are about to take on Portugal in a massive World Cup clash. Lots of groups huddled together. It's obviously on their minds.
Of course it is, and it's been on their minds all the way through this process. And you know, I mean, even in very, very basic terms, you can look at this and think to yourself, well, how much have they slept? The president of the federation admitted that he'd had gastroenteritis, he hadn't slept at all, that he's really struggled through this, and he's only been in the job for 3 weeks. It's quite a start for him.
Sergio Ramos, was he putting a brave face on things last night at the press conference?
Up to a point, I think he was, but not entirely. I actually think the point that he made was quite right, and it was about trying to bring people back on board. That comment at the end when he said, look, this is like a funeral parlour. We're playing the World Cup tomorrow, and that was the reminder, I think, that everyone needed, that it comes back to the football. But of course, the reason the crisis has been so intense is because it was just 2 days before the World Cup started.
You cover Spanish football. How much of this is politics between Real Madrid and the Spanish FA?
That's what's come later. That's not what started this. What started this, of course, was the timing, the way in which it was managed was particularly bad, I think, from Real Madrid, but also actually up to a point from the Federation. But from that moment on, then, of course, those political elements came into it, and there was a significant element, I think, of hurt pride and of the Federation president having to stand up and say, right, I'm going to take control of this. And, of course, then Real Madrid reacted in kind.
Sid, thank you very much indeed. Gary, it's been a chaotic 48 hours for the Spanish national team.
Well, it most certainly has, hasn't it? Let's concentrate on the football. We'll look ahead to the game now. Let's start with Costa, a centre-forward of kind of your ilk in many ways, Alan. A very physical player. Didn't quite perform 4 years ago. Can Spain bring out the best?
Well, you mentioned it just a minute ago about he didn't have a shot on target in the games he played 4 years ago. And to get the best out of Costa, he's best when he's angry, he's snarling, he's up against defenders, and he's horrible to play against when he's running in behind and balls are being crossed in. But on these occasions here, just if you just keep an eye on him, he goes towards the ball. He doesn't get the ball. He gets frustrated. We all admire the way Spain play because it's brilliant on the eye, but it sometimes doesn't get the best out of the centre forward, out of Costa, and he can get very frustrated at times. He goes short there. The ball eventually comes to him again. He goes short and then goes long. He doesn't get it. It eventually goes out to the right-hand side, and if you keep an eye on him, when I say frustrated, you can see his arms in the air because the ball doesn't come into the box. He wants the ball crossed into the box. He wants the ball played in behind, so he's up against defenders, because when it does, then that's when he's at his best. That's when he's got to finish these off now, because they're a great match, I think, if they can just mix it up a little bit and keep on their passing game, but keep on looking forward for him, and they're going to have to do that if they want to get the best out of him.
Cesc, you were part of that squad, of course, 4 years ago when it didn't quite happen for him. Do you agree with what Alan says, or?
Yeah, I think Diego has always played in teams with different style to what we see with the Spanish players, and sometimes he was telling me and talking to me about it that he gets frustrated, because the good thing about Diego is that, because I played with him for 3 years, is that his runs are normally very, very good. The timing of his runs are nearly perfect, so it's up to the midfielder to see it or not.
Do you think the team needs to adapt to him, or does he need to adapt to the team?
He definitely needs to adapt to what we've been doing for so many years, but it is true that sometimes we could use him much more than what we do.
I think it was vital for your team when you played together. You had the telepathy between each other, where you play the ball, he'd make them runs. It doesn't seem like they've got license in this team and the style that they play to be able to play them balls as direct as you would have at Chelsea, and that's frustrating for him, I'm sure, as a number 9.
Yeah, it probably is. One thing Lopetegui did do, he was kind of brought through a lot of the young players that he worked with at under 21, under 19 level, and one of those players was, of course, the excellent Isco that plays so beautifully at times for Real Madrid.
Yeah, probably. I think since Iniesta, he's the most talented player that has come into the Spanish football. What I like about him is that he's very anarchic. He's everywhere. He runs. He always gets into dangerous positions. I mean, the last 2 years especially, he's grown up a lot. You know, he's making a big difference for club and country. He's starting to score goals, big goals, which is something that maybe he was lacking. And I just like him a lot.
You got a hat-trick.
You're a fan, I know you are.
I love him. I love the way he plays. I think he'd be a nightmare to play against, because he takes you into areas and he says to you, are you going to come and mark me? and engage with me out in the open, or are you going to sit in your area? If you don't go out there, he can turn, then he'll dictate and pass balls through you and past you. But if you do go out, even he's got the ability to manipulate the ball, and he's so tricky to get away from you. He's a defender's nightmare.
I've got to ask you about Ramos. Great leader, great captain, great player. Can be an irritant at times, but love him or loathe him, you'd want him in your side, wouldn't you?
He wins things. He's a serial winner, and I think he's the most influential defender on the planet right now. He's a fantastic player. Sometimes gets a bit too caught up in the emotions of a game, which can be worrying for a manager, for a team. But when the trophies are there to be handed out, this guy puts a shirt on and leads from the front, and that's what you need in big teams.
He's one of those guys. I've never met the guy, but I have to say I don't really like him. But you're absolutely right. I would love him in my team because as everything what Rio's said, we have to echo. Serial winner.
He's all-round good egg, isn't he?
He's a winner.
In other words, move on.
There speaks the Barcelona man. We can go back to the stadium to hear from former England midfielder Danny Murphy, who's on co-commentary duty tonight.
Fantastic atmosphere here inside this stadium. And Danny, we're very lucky to be in this position. We could be looking at one of the games of the tournament.
Well, I couldn't agree more. We've got some wonderfully gifted footballers on the pitch. Two of the most talented teams we've seen come together so far in the tournament, of course. And for me, watching Spain is always an education with their technical ability. David Silva, Busquets, Iniesta, his last tournament. So pleased to see him live tonight. They've just got a wonderful array of talent. And I think with these conditions, the humidity, the heat, the way they keep the ball, it's going to be a tough evening for Portugal.
And the responsibility, as ever, falls on the shoulders of Cristiano Ronaldo. Well,
it does. We know his qualities. We know he can produce wonderful moments to win a game at any time. But he's got to get the ball. He's got to rely on his teammates to get him enough of the ball for him to cause problems. And I think they will play in the counter. They'll look for set plays. But they're European champions for a reason. And when you've got Ronaldo in your team, you've always got a chance. But I think with the negativity around the Spanish squad, that they might have a point to prove tonight, and I fancy them hugely.
It's an incredible subplot, isn't it? The fact that they sacked their coach 48 hours before, Danny.
Well, all I would say is that with the senior players they've got in this team, the amount of silverware, you know, the wisdom that they've got, I don't see it being a problem as much as it would be for any other side. And there might just be part of them that thinks, let's shut a few people up.
OK, Danny, thank you very much indeed. A few hundred metres away from this stadium, there's a beach. It's grey and rocky, a bit like Spain's build-up to this match, Gary.
There's one Real Madrid man who won't mind what's going on this week, Cristiano Ronaldo. 15 goals in qualifying, but this is a Portugal side that proved to be much more than a one-man band at Euro 2016.
The tale of the ugly duckling is one of perseverance, a fable of defying the odds to become the best you can be. When Portugal coach Fernando Santos described his side as the ugly ducklings of Euro 2016, eyebrows were raised. The Seleção were expected to glide serenely through the group stage, but choppy waters lay ahead. They were held to a draw by Iceland in their opening game. The reaction? Not pretty.
They don't try to play, they just defend. This is small mentality.
Further downstream were Austria, and just as it looked as though Ronaldo and Portugal had taken flight, the wings were clipped.
Flag up, it's not counting.
While the pressure was mounting, Cristiano was making the wrong kind of splash. Against Hungary, the world caught a glimpse of what Portugal could become.
What a superb headed finish from Cristiano Ronaldo!
But a third straight draw left them third in the group, through as lucky losers. Knockout football time. Sink or swim. Another indecisive 90 minutes, extra time required to beat Croatia.
It's headed in by Ricardo Quaresma!
Unconvincing, but unbeaten. Criticism from the world's media and an early blow was like water off a duck's back.
Sanchez shoots Portugal level!
It was more grit than grace as Poland were removed on penalties. Santos's ugly ducklings were starting to find their identity.
Portugal have done it! They're through to the semi-final!
The Welsh lay in wait, but in this Game of Thrones, the Portuguese would smother the Dragons.
Ronaldo's met it! What a jump that was!
Pragmatic, powerful, poised. A first win inside 90 minutes. Portugal were floating into the final.
Maybe this is their and their Crown Prince Cristiano's year.
Primed and preened, they now looked the part, but it was far from plain sailing.
fired in very strongly. Ronaldo's writhing.
The defining moment followed soon after.
Eder smashes Portugal onto the verge of glory.
They may have started the Euros as the Ugly Ducklings, but 5 weeks later, the transformation was complete.
Well, not such a great day for Cristiano today. According to reports in Spain, Ronaldo has reached a deal with Spanish tax authorities to serve a 2-year suspended prison sentence and pay an €18.8 million fine in a tax evasion case. He's accused of evading €14.7 million in taxes. He might need the win bonus.
He's down to his last 83 million then, is he?
Yeah. But on the pitch, there are never any problems. 43 goals in 43 games this season, 15 in qualifying.
Yeah.
But in World Cups, he's never quite kind of caught fire.
No, 3 goals in 3 World Cups. This is his 4th World Cup.
13 games.
And these are the 3 goals that he scored in 2006, 2010 and 2014 against Iran, North Korea and Ghana. And if he scores in this World Cup, he'll be only the 4th person to do so. But the stats, other than World Cup goals, are just ridiculous around him. He's 33 now, so it's probably going to be his last World Cup, and he'll be desperate to make an impact. He's won almost everything. Will it be his and Portugal's time this year? But he's just incredible. 151 caps, 81 goals. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Staggering.
He'll probably put everything to right in this World Cup. But we can kind of demonstrate that the conversion rates of all the top conversion rates in the history of the of the World Cup, and he's right down the bottom. Oh, look! Oh, who knew? Who knew? Who knew?
How long you had that planned?
About 12 months. Nothing to do with me. The producer just came up with it. To be perfectly honest, I had no idea. Obviously, Rio. Ronaldo, I mean, we've talked about him many times.
I feel like a fanboy, if I'm honest, the way I talk about him. But I think what you try and reiterate to people is that he is just a ridiculous professional. Take the talent and put that to one side. You can have so much talent. The mentality is key to everything about Cristiano Ronaldo. To sustain that level for so many years, across 10, 12 years, all these 5 Ballon d'Ors, winning all these trophies that he's got. To do that, you need a particular mentality, the drive, the determination to year on year try and improve. That's what sets him apart. That's what makes him special.
I remember speaking to Sir Alex about him a couple of years ago, and he said he's the best professional he's ever had, and everything is programmed at different stages in his career. The way he works, his attitude, everything is so programmed.
He was the first person I saw employing nutritionists, a doctor, a personal physio, a chef. They came and lived in his house more or less. He lived up the road from me, a couple of doors up. Going to his house, it was like a carnival of people walking around. I used to think, wow, what's going on here? But he invested in himself to become the best in the world, and he left Manchester United as the best player in the world.
Well, whatever he did, it worked. Interestingly, the Portugal national side, since the Euros, winning the Euros, they've kind of discarded 10 players and they've changed things around a little bit. But one player they have brought in is Bernardo Silva, who's impressed us so much this season with Manchester City, Cesc.
Yeah, I think he will be a key player if they do well in the tournament. I mean, you can see his qualities already 2 years ago, what he did with Monaco. He was the difference in that team, and I think with Pep, he's grown up a lot. You know, he can play inside, outside, and it's this type of player that, a bit like Messi, you know what he will do. He likes to come inside and score goals or make the final pass, but you try to avoid it, but it's difficult because he does it very well, sharp, and he will be a top player for them if they want to do well.
He'll certainly improve them, won't he? At the other end of the pitch, one of the old boys, Rio, Pepe.
Yep.
Tough old character.
Yep. He's Marmite. Some love him, some hate him, but the guy gets it done defensively. I think in the Euros he was pivotal in the final, man of the match performance. And you need players like to step up, and I think today is vital against a Spanish team that are going to be very cute in their movement. They've got talented footballers. You need experience in your back line. He's someone who marshals that back line as well as anyone, and he knows how to win in big games, and this is a World Cup first game. Nerves will be high. I'm sure he'll be that calming influence among that back four.
Expectant crowd there, ready this evening in Sochi. There are the two teams. What do you expect to happen, Alan? Who's going to win this?
I'm going to go for a score draw, Gary. I'm going to go for 1-1.
Yeah. Cesc, how do you see it going? Can Spain do it despite everything that's happened this week?
Yeah, I believe in this group. I believe in these players. I'm going for a Spain win.
I'm going to go for a Spain win, galvanised by what's gone on in the last couple of days, and push them to a victory over a good Portugal team.
OK, we'll find out shortly. Let's head over to the Fish Stadium. Here's hoping the action keeps us all hooked. Your commentators...